I told you I'd tell you what happened Monday at the start of today's video. And I tried to follow the instructions as written, and I got really deep down in the weeds. And I did have a whole video. It was about 30 minutes showing exactly how I proceeded and why and where I got in trouble. I'm just going to delete that video and go with this one. Personally, I would rather show you me getting into the weeds because I think when you do this, the same thing is likely to happen to you. And I would rather you see the trouble I have, even with 50 years of experience with all this junk, so that you know that you're not alone. And maybe it can help keep you from being frustrated. But then again, I don't want to beat on these hardware and software manufacturers because I was one. So this is what I did. There's a little piece of paper comes with the receiver. Tells you to go to this page and click on these instructions and follow them. So that's what I did. I clicked on instructions, looked down through this. I've got one of these antennas. I don't know if it came from them or not. I think it did. But it's for my 1.2 video receivers, not for these transmitters and receivers. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I don't have this GPS, this Dragon Link. I don't have the older version 2 system. I don't have the large system. I actually have the new system, and it's actually a slim. I've learned all this since then. I even learned that that's an LED, not a button. There's nothing in this that really tells you that. So following the instruction I was given in the product box, I clicked here. Now, I wasn't ready to do Wi-Fi. I'm still not. I wasn't ready to do telemetry. I'm still not. I sort of have a little bit. And wasn't going to do this. All of this down through here was would be down the road from what I was doing. I did click on downloads here and did get this PDF manual right here for the Dragon Link system. But other than that, I just followed what I was told, went to then this, and this is what I have. 433 915 megahertz quick start guide. Didn't tell me to read the manual. Didn't even tell me where the manual was. So I came in here at one point and clicked here to download the 16 July, the firmware. And actually, and tell you the truth, I did come over here and click here to download the November 17th, 2020 firmware, just so I would have all the firmwares. I did click here and look through this. I kind of understood everything that was going on here before I bought it. So I was basically down to looking here. I wasn't going to do telemetry yet. Didn't need a telemetry demonstration. This information's actually over in that other place. And I guess I should have read down through this, and this might have gotten me out of trouble. I don't know. There's lots of problems with this because I just came in here after I had downloaded all this stuff and looked through. I clicked on this, and because I was going to install the most current firmware, because everywhere it says you'll not get as good telemetry if you don't use this firmware. I was kind of intent on installing this, the most current firmware. And then because this document, this is where we left off right here with getting the firmware up. The next little paragraph here was binding. And there's not much information here on binding. So I was just trying to follow this one little guide right here. Told me to press and hold the menu button on the transmitter while powering on. Release the button when you reach menu option 2. And I'm going, oh my God, there's no menu on this transmitter. There's no screen on this transmitter. What the hell are they talking about? Well, that's over in that other manual that I did download and eventually read, but wasn't told to go there. When the transmitter LED turns blue, LED on the transmitter will flash. After you release the button, you'll hear short beeping. Turn on the receiver. Binding now takes a full 30 seconds. Do not stop this process. You'll hear the Dragon Link transmitter start to emit a fast beep while the binding is in process. After about 30 seconds, the Dragon Link transmitter will emit a long 3 seconds continuous beep. After the long beep, wait and confirm that all beeping is stopped. Check and confirm there is a solid blue LED on the Dragon Link transmitter. Do not stop this process early or binding will not work. Repower both the transmitter and receiver. The blue LED on the transmitter and receiver indicates a good RF link. Okay, trying to do this hooked into the USB. I didn't get any LEDs. I didn't get any beeping. I then did go back down to, where is it? This documentation is like most documentation. Wherever I get back to those downloads. Nope, that ain't getting me back to the downloads, is it? See, this is the kind of frustration I went through that day. We'll go back here real quick. Nope, not there. This product, not there. Differences? Nope. Okay, back to here. Down here is downloads. I haven't gotten into the troubleshooting yet. Perhaps I should. And then here was the PDF manual, which I did download. And if you go to that PDF manual, you'll see the menu discussed. But that really is, you're not really told to do that in the quick start guide. So anyway, if you get down in here, where is it? Dragon Link GUI. I don't know how this manual's good. The graphical user interface that I've got so far doesn't seem to match this. Anyway, someplace in here. Oh well, I'll just scroll down through and try to find it again. They discuss the menu on the transmitter. Someplace in here they do, honest. Boy, isn't this fun? Alarms and settings. All these things I can't get to anymore with the new GUI, but that's a whole different problem. We'll discuss that when we get to it. SD logging. Don't have anything about the SD card in the new GUI. RSSI, telemetry info, spectrum angle. Ah, here we go. 3.3. Is that the... Let's see if that's in the index and I missed it. Yeah, it must be. Yeah, 3.3. Using the menu button. So we'll go back down there real quick. 3, 4, back to 3, 3, 3, 2. Okay, here we go. Using menu button. Hold down the menu button on the DragonLink transmitter and turn on the power. After the power on sound is played, the LED will turn green accompanied by 1 beep. Release the menu button. Transmitter will continue to play 1 beep. Anyway, there is nothing that pointed me towards this. I just finally in frustration came over here. So I did see that. See, this doesn't give you a whole lot of information between where it starts here and where it starts talking about binding, and you wait, etc., etc., etc. I guess this does tell you deeper menu function. I'm still a little frustrated with this, still a little frustrated with what I've gone through today. Sorry about that. It's really hard for me because working in hardware and software for 50 years, I've seen that a lot of these software hardware providers, they need to hire technical writers who can understand the hardware and software and then can write a good manual. The documentation still continues to suck. DragonLink's documentation is just about like everybody else's. It is all to hell. So anyway, reading through this gave me the idea that the menu button held for a period of time times out and jumps to another menu item and gives you an indication in the LED that it has made that change. So armed with that, at that point, I made a video for DragonLink support, showed them this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm not getting, I don't get any sound out of it, etc., etc., etc. And I was still hooking it up to the USB on my bench. That's the way I start out with everything. Nothing in here told me to do anything different. Matter of fact, following what I was told to do by coming to this area, clicking here, and then following this list, none of this ever pointed me at the manual. And none of it ever told me some of the things I should have done. So I sent off that email to DragonLink support, and then I sat down and I started thinking, and within 5 minutes I said, well, you know, throughout history in my computer career, electronics career, I've had problems with things that the 5 volts in USB is not quite sufficient for. And technically the 5 volts in USB isn't always 5 volts. It can be 4.75, 4.32, 4.5, somewhat less than 5 volts. So historically, I have had problems with USB not being sufficient power. So I said, I'm going to try something. So I took the little wire that came in the box that you hook into the transmitter and hook into the back of the TX16S. And I researched what I was supposed to do with that wire, which is not detailed here. You're not told here to do that. You're told to update the firmware and then bind it. And the other firmware, this one, doesn't even tell you any of that. So when I was sent to this page by the little piece of paper in the box, I followed what it said. So when I hooked up the connector to the back of the TX16, the little 5 5 or 6 pins in the JR module bay, and hooked the other end into the transmitter and turned on the radio, what happened? The LED turned on, it started beeping, and at that second I said, yep, USB power is not sufficient. You see that warning in this documentation? Does anybody know where it is in the documentation at all? I haven't found it yet. Now, I'll show you in a second where you might have found this out and not gotten this trouble. Don't want to confuse things. But anyway, at that instant that I was getting beeps and the LED was turning blue, turning green, turning white, whatever it needed to do, I immediately, this was half hour after I sent the message to Dragon Link support, I knew they probably wouldn't get back to me till the next day. I sent another message to Dragon Link support and said, oops, sorry about that. I've just figured out that USB power is not sufficient. And I plugged it into my radio, and now I'm getting somewhere above 5 volts, and everything seems to be working as indicated. Sorry about that. I had to go turn the dehumidifier off that turned on in the middle of my video. So I sent that email to Dragon Link support and said, oh, my bad. I've realized now that USB power is not enough. And that's exactly the next day I got a email back from Dragon Link support, which basically said, USB power is not enough. And technically, if you follow this, and this comes from, let me go back and show you. Let's go all the way back to home. You click instructions, you click Dragon Link Advanced, and then you click on this. Don't go into any of these firmwares at this point. Stay on this page. And if you go down on this page right here, it starts going through what you would do. I mean, they're saying here, you know, this comes out of the box workable, and it probably does. You probably really don't need to upgrade the firmware if you don't want to do telemetry, all sorts of reasons. If you never hook it to a computer, basically this documentation right here says you can actually use this without ever hooking it to a computer, and you'll be fine. And you probably will for a control link. Although they do recommend to put it up to the current version of software all over the place. Here they kind of say you don't have to do that. And if you did go down through these steps, you would mount the Dragon Link transmitter to your RC transmitter. Does it say here? Connect the Dragon Link transmitter input 1 to your RC transmitter's PPM output. Right here is where you would have hooked it to the radio, which I finally did. Connect Dragon Link to your RC transmitter. Ensure that you have a green LEDs on your Dragon Link transmitter. I suppose that's after you turn it on, but they don't show it here. Green LEDs indicate that you have both power and valid PPM signal. It could be an S-bus signal or other signals, but it needs some kind of signal in addition to power. But it needs the power from your radio. Change the ID on the transmitter, bind to the receiver, set fail-safes, range test, and fly. Telemetry setup optional. Nowhere in here does it say USB power is insufficient. Nowhere in here does it say you can't take this out of the box, put it on the bench where you can work with it easily, and hook USB into the transmitter and the receiver and get everything running. You can't. So I was in the weeds for, man, a couple of hours Monday, going over all this and going, well, I don't get any beeps out of it. It doesn't work. I'm just really frustrated. I got the firmware updated, but I can't get it to bind. Like I say, within 20-30 minutes of sending that link to Dragon Link support, I figured out on my own by hooking it to the radio that LED power is not sufficient. LED power. USB power is not sufficient. That was pretty frustrating for me Monday. Yesterday, I have things I do on Tuesdays that keep me pretty well busy on Tuesdays. So I did start working with it again today. And I'm working on this video right now that shows you how I got it to bind and a little bit of how I mounted it to my radio. I'm not sure that's the way I'm ultimately going to mount it to my radio, but we'll talk about that in future videos too. So with all of this in mind, I'll pick up with the end of the video from Monday, where I did find out that USB power was insufficient, hooked it up to my radio, and then was able to bind the transmitter and receiver together. I did figure out my little problem, but before I get to that, this is how I am going to mount the Dragon Link on my radios. I had another Crossfire JR module when we were wondering if that was what was causing my radio and Crossfire problem originally 6 months ago. So I gutted that. I took the actual Crossfire Wi-Fi adapter board that's inside the Crossfire JR module. I just wanted the module itself, so I'll set this aside for use elsewhere. And then I've run the cable through it and kind of out the back there, and what I'm going to do is plug this on the radio and then snap the Crossfire into the radio exactly like the Crossfire transmitter does. Snap the Dragon Link transmitter into the radio exactly like the Crossfire does. So let me take that double-sided tape off of there, get all this sort of situated, and I'll show you what I've done and what I did find out about USB does not provide enough power, it seems. So this is what I ended up with. Got the JR module, double-sided tape to the back, and then here's the connector. And I'll just gently plug in the connector and then fit the box. This slot here has to go over this connector after it's plugged in, and the excess wire is inside the JR module. I'll have to do this with two hands and laying the radio on the table. Let me do that real quick. It looks good from my bedroom. Now then, all the problems with the radio, the transmitter, it just doesn't have enough power on USB when I power it up this way.
Welcome to OpenTX.
I get a LED and beeping, the whole 9 yards I'm supposed to get. So that was my problem. I was trying to do all of this from the USB voltage. So now if I hold down the menu button and power it up, whoops.
Welcome to OpenTX.
There we go. I'm ready to bind. How about that? So it needs more voltage than the USB cable will give or some such. But there, it's waiting to bind. I'm just going to go ahead and power that back down. I would rather this work with USB voltage because I don't want to have to put it on the radio every time I have to do something with it. But Now I can power up the transmitter and the receiver, and let's see if it binds. So let's see again. That sequence was hold down the menu button, power it up, wait for it to go into menu 2 and the LED turns blue. Okay. And then here's my little receiver. I'm going to plug in the USB to the computer to power up the receiver. Blue button's blinking. I hope it's binding. It says it could take like 30 seconds. Ah, got a blue blink over here. Something's happening anyway. There we go. There's the long beep. There's the short beeps. And we have a blue bind button. Let me go back to the docks on the screen real quick. Let's see, where was that? I think it may be bound right now. This isn't stopping beeping, but I'm going to power it down. Didn't say nothing about receiver attached, but that might be crossfire only. Can't expect it to work like another manufacturer's hardware.
Welcome to OpenTX.
So again, let's go back up to the docks real quick on the screen. So all of that was from Monday, and I did get the receiver and transmitter bound after I took it off of USB. I have come back into this and come back into the full documentation, which is here. And I have searched that for USB. And there is not a single place in here where USB is discussed, where it even hints that USB power is not sufficient. I also have come over, that's starting over again, I also have come over to, let's see, where am I? Oops. The docks here, gone into here, gone into here, go here, Control F, USB. If you get down into the bottom of this document, you don't get sidetracked like I did by going ahead and doing your firmware like you should. You do have right here flying. We strongly encourage you to connect the transmitter to your computer via any standard micro USB cable. Oops, I thought that was going to say USB was not sufficient. No. That's basically for telemetry, I think. So if we look for USB again, exit USB telemetry mode. It's just those two occurrences of the word USB in this document. It doesn't say a darn thing about USB voltage is insufficient. Let's see here. On this page, USB phrase is not found in this page at all. So there's nothing in the documentation. There's nothing anywhere that says USB power is insufficient. It tells you to come to this page, go here, and of course choose your system, which I don't know. I would assume that this system and this system are no longer sold after 2018. Come in here. There is nothing that tells you anywhere that USB power is insufficient. So that's how I got in the weeds Monday. I got myself out of it without help, although the next day when Dragon Link support confirmed my suspicion. I pretty much knew the night before that when I plugged it into the radio and turned it on and heard the beeps and saw the LED that, yeah, that was my problem. But it was nice to get a confirmation. It's always nice for the hardware software manufacturers to come back and say, yes, you're correct on that, or no, you're wrong on that. So I was a little frustrated Monday trying to get this thing bound up. But I eventually did. I hope this heads off a few of you having the same problem if you see this video before you try to configure this stuff. That's my intention. And this is just a problem for new people, which is frequently with any kind of hardware or software. If you've never done it before, you can get in the weeds really easily. I'll never get back in the weeds on this problem again because I know USB is not sufficient. But my videos I'm trying to make them in a way that'll help the people who are going to be just like I was Monday, happy to have this in their hand, excited about it, opening the box, taking out this hardware for the first time in life, and then what you might try to do with it and some of the problems you can find. And that's basically what happened to me Monday. Now, I'm going to end this video here at binding the transmitter and receiver, and then next we'll look at hooking it to the flight controllers and stuff, because I ran into even more problems with the documentation today when I tried to actually hook it to a airplane. But we'll get into that. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one, probably tomorrow.